Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2015, and this is already our 7th episode of this third season. And I think it's our 47th episode overall. So we're getting a little more experienced with this. The Lunch and Learn series is sponsored by ATSU University's Department of Information Technology and Services. I am Brian Kruzniak, and thanks for joining us once again for the show that shares information, tips, technology, and goings-on around ATSU. So we'll give you lots of updates. We've got another good program for you today. Great material to share in this episode. We've got Randy Danielsen and Lisa Ncube going to discuss the Higher Learning Commission. And then be sure to stick around with us for the Break to Educate segment, where we will discuss lynda.com, and you can actually learn how to win some interesting prizes over the coming year. So that'll be good. And then back by popular demand is our segment, our Microsoft Tips segment from Beth Thompson. So before I introduce our distinguished guest, I want to remind everyone that we encourage you to participate in the show between bites of your sandwich and type in those questions and comments into the live stream chat window. It's very easy and really adds to the learning part of these Lunch and Learn sessions, so please participate and pass along your thoughts, comments, and questions. And then we'll gather them up throughout the show and then pass them along for our panel to discuss. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's guests are Dr. Randy Danielsen and Dr. Lisa Ncube. Dr. Danielsen is the Dean of the Arizona School of Health Sciences at ATSU, and he is a peer reviewer for the Higher Learning Commission. And then Dr. Lisa Ncube is in the University Academic Affairs area, where she is the inaugural director of the Office of Assessment and Accreditation, and she has some special insight into the HLC because she used to work at the Higher Learning Commission. So welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Great. I think maybe, Randy, we can start with just kind of a broad overview of the HLC. Can you just tell us a little bit about the Higher Learning Commission?
Certainly. Now, the Higher Learning Commission is a organization that accredits degree granting post-secondary educational institutions in what's called the North Central region of the United States. They are housed in Chicago. They were actually established in 1895, which is 3 years after our institution was founded. It's a nonprofit, peer-based membership organization, and their job to about 1,000 different institutions across 19 states is to develop criteria for accreditation, which is important for all of us because the only way we get federal government or Title IV funds is to be accredited. So their job is to sort of serve the common good for assuring and advancing the quality of higher education, Brian.
And how many other accreditation agencies are there in the U.S.? They're one of a dozen? I don't know. How many?
Well, there's actually 6. We're one of 6 and organizations. And as I said earlier, each one of those organizations has a large number of institutions. All across the country, there's about 3,500 accredited institutions. Of that, 1,000 fall under the Higher Learning Commission's purview.
And then do the institutions, you said it's a peer-based membership, so the people who serve on the commission, they're not appointees. Do the institutions choose the people who serve on the commission, or how does that work?
Yeah, they do have a board of directors or a board of trustees. I forget which one it is, but they are appointed through recommendation from the member institutions. And then the HLC itself actually hires about 50 employees to run the organization.
Okay. And you said that their power kind of vests from Title IV. What is Title IV, and kind of give us a background on where that fits?
Well, Title IV is educational money, loan money, and which is obviously the lifeblood of any institution, is for their students to be able to apply for, and get student loans. And without accreditation, you can't get that.
Okay. And so then is there some oversight for kind of the spending of those dollars through the Department of Education, or how does that work?
That's correct. Yeah, it all stems from the Department of Education, which is sort of the, for want of a better term, sort of the big brother in the United States is the Department of Education.
Okay. And with so many different institutions, what did you say, about 1,000 different institutions are accredited through HLC? How is it decided which institutions are accredited through HLC versus one of the other agencies?
Well, that's a great question. I'd like to say it's really geographically based. And so for the Higher Learning Commission, it really, those 1,000 different institutions are, the Midwest all the way out to part of the West. And for instance, it's called North Central. Let me give you an example. If you were in an institution in Florida, then you'd come under what's called SACS, S-A-C-S, which is the Southern Accrediting Agency. And if you were in Seattle, you'd be in, the WASC, W-A-S-C. So it's all geographically based. They sort of divvied them out.
Okay. So if it's geographically based, then, each geography or each region has, lots of different types of institutions. Does the HLC cover all of those different types of institutions?
Yeah, it's a great question. The HLC really, of those 1,000 plus different institutions, about 50% of them are public, 50% of them are private. Of that many, about 30% are actually two-year institutions, and only about 4% are for-profit institutions. So there's a really diversity from everywhere from two-year institutions to four-year institutions, tribal colleges, research universities, single purpose and degree institutions. So you name it, it sort of fits into the picture.
So doesn't that make it difficult for the HLC to kind of cover that wide span? I mean, I would think that the issues that, say, we as a healthcare institution face would be quite a bit different from a community college, for example.
Well, that's a very good point. Although what the HLC does is it creates some very broad criterion for accreditation that every institution, whether you're a two-year institution or a four-year or a professional institution. So there are some, a number of criteria that are used that every institution is expected to adhere to.
And maybe walk us through what are some of those criteria and kind of how do they work? What are they based on?
Sure. Well, first of all, they're based on some accreditation standards that have been developed over a number of years that are constantly being reviewed by the HLC and their board of trustees. There are really four areas that every institution has to look at in terms of information from the HLC. One is a list of guiding values, and these are sort of the understandings and intentions that underline the different criteria. The second thing is very broad-based criteria. There are 5 of them, and I can tell you what those are in just a minute. And they have to be explicitly addressed by every institution during their period of accreditation. Underneath that 5 criteria, there are about 21 core competencies. And these are definitions that have to be specifically addressed by the institution. The third thing is some assumed practices. And these are practices that's unlikely to vary by mission or type of institution. And then the fourth thing is the obligation of affiliation and what it means to be a member of the Higher Learning Commission. So that's the 4 areas that every institution has to be aware of. Real quickly, the 5 criterion, the first one is mission. So the mission of an institution has to be clear, it has to be articulated publicly, and it really guides the institution's operations. And so this is why every few years our board of trustees and many others we're doing our strategic plan, we go back and look at what's the mission and what is it we tell the public. The second criterion is integrity. And that's ethical and responsible conduct. So we have to show to our accreditors that we're ethical and we're responsible, that we act with integrity. The third thing is teaching and learning quality resources. Really the bread and butter of what we do as an institution. We provide high quality education wherever and however it's offered. And so we have to show that to our accreditors. The fourth criterion is teaching and learning education and improvement. So not only do we provide quality ethical education, but we look at how we improve that over the years. And the fifth criterion is resources, planning, and institutional effectiveness. And that is that we make sure that all of our schools have the resources, that we have a planning group that looks at how we're going to do things down the road, and that we're effective. And so we have to show that we're effective. So that's sort of the long story, or maybe it's a short story, of what the 5 criterion are. I hope that answered your question, Brian.
Yeah, that makes sense, because then those are kind of broad enough categories that it can really fit any type of institution. That makes some sense.
Exactly.
Where would things fit, like scholarship and research? Is that a part of teaching and education, or kind of how does that fit, since that's a big part of who we are at ATSU?
Yeah, it certainly would come under, and the interesting thing about the criterion is many parts of the university may fall under each of the different criteria. So scholarships certainly would fall under teaching and learning. And it also would fall under, resources, that we have resources to do that. And so when we're reviewed by the Higher Learning Commission, these are the areas that they look at. And, when they come to visit us like they did in 2009, it's a very large a group of folks that comes to look at our organization.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I think that provides a great overview of the Higher Learning Commission. I think maybe that's a good place for us to break. So let's take a quick break then at this point, and we're going to go see what's on the radar. And when we get back, then I think we'll transition a little bit from the general side of kind of who the HLC is to more of the specifics and how it relates to ATSU. So remember, for those who are out there watching, please post your comments and questions in the live stream window, and then what we'll do is we'll include those back in the discussion. So we'll be right back.
As you walk around either campus, you see ITS busy at work. What you don't see, though, are the projects we have on our radar. We plan projects 6, 12, 18, and even 24 months ahead. We watch for trends, test products internally, set up beta test groups, and create documentation, all just to make the end result better for you. Here is a very small percentage of what's currently on our radar. If you enjoy the On the Radar, please let the help desk know.
All right, great. Welcome back. So we are in the middle of a conversation with Drs. Randy Danielsen and Lisa Ncube about their involvement, kind of present and past, with the accreditation process for the Higher Learning Commission. And before the break, we kind of got a good overview of the Higher Learning Commission. And what I'd like to do now is turn our attention a bit more to how this organization affects A.T. Still University itself. And so I guess where the rubber really meets the road is the accreditation process, or I think HLC uses the term accreditation paths. And so I'm wondering, Randy, if you or Lisa could kind of walk us through the accreditation process or the options that we have for accreditation?
Sure, I'd be happy to start that, and perhaps Lisa can jump on board if she has anything to add. So the Higher Learning Commission actually has 3 pathways, and the first one is called a standard pathway, and this is actually something that if you're a brand new institution going for accreditation, or unfortunately, if you are a institution that has some issues, you may be placed in the standard pathway. And this is and you can see the graphic there. This is a 10-year pathway that an institution is required to jump through so many hoops during that 10 years. The second kind of pathway is the open pathway. And you'll see a star there because that's where we're at. And so we're eligible because we've been an institution that's been accredited for many years. We enrolled in the open pathway, and this is a 10-year process as well. There's an assurance review, what's called a review that you do online every so often. And then at the end of the 10-year cycle, you actually have a comprehensive visit. The third pathway is what's called AQUIP. And this is sort of a different type of pathway, and it's for institutions who have some significant experience in technology where they can actually do a lot of online accreditation work. And most institutions are either in the standard pathway or the open pathway. So that's it in a nutshell, Brian. That's the three pathways that every institution in the HLC has to be involved in one of those pathways.
Do we think of them as kind of a progression where, ultimately everyone would kind of, aspire to that AQUIP pathway?
Well, that's a good question. And I think if you asked about 10 folks, you'd get about 10 different answers on that. And we discussed this a year or two ago at ATSU because we were going from a pathway, it used to be called PEAK. We were on that before when we went through accreditation, and that pathway was retired. So we had to decide which one we were going to go into, whether it was open pathway or AQUIP. And we looked at all the different responsibilities, and the majority of us felt that open pathway was the best for us at our maturity as an institution. We may at some point want to move over to AQUIP, but I think for now, I think the open pathway is where many of us wanted to be. Lisa, did you want to say anything about the pathways?
Randy has captured it very well. Basically, all the pathways are standalone. It's not so much that there is any progression, except maybe with the standard pathway, some institutions are required to elect the standard pathway because, like Randy said, if they are not at that level of maturity, new institutions that have not demonstrated the level of authority, the level of transparency, or other aspects of accreditation that the HLC expects, then they're required to elect the standard pathway. Open pathway is only reserved for those institutions that have demonstrated in the past that they are capable and very mature institutions. And however, even if you are given the opportunity to choose an open pathway, you may still elect to go with the standard because the open pathway has certain responsibilities that the standard pathway doesn't necessarily have. While there are more hoops to jump, the standard pathway, like the name suggests, is very standard, and it's a lockstep type of progression through the standard pathway. And AQUIP also is a choice that institutions can make, but the focus for AQUIP is really on quality improvement.
And are all three of the pathways kind of managed on a 10-year cycle? And maybe we can kind of go through the 10-year horizon that the accreditation process goes through.
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. Actually, the standard pathway and the open pathway is a 10-year pathway. I believe that AQUIP actually falls into an 8-year pathway. Now you can see the graphic there. This is a graphic of the open pathway, the one that we're in. And you'll see that there's really, if you see from the far left, starting at year 1 to the far right at year 10, the assurance process is something that every institution has to have. This is something that we contribute on a yearly basis. We have online at the HLC where we have to upload documents into what's called an evidence file. And this is evidence of how we meet the different criteria and the sub-criteria. And then the institution may do this all the way through, year 1 through year 9. And then in year 10, there's a comprehensive evaluation, usually an on-site. If you follow to the next area there, talking about improvement or the quality initiative, and in a few minutes, I'm going to ask Lisa to talk about our quality initiative. But this is something that's important in our pathway, where we propose a quality initiative, something that's going to make. Yes, sir.
Before we get to the quality initiative, just a couple quick questions about kind of the cycle. What should we as an institution be thinking about to prepare, for different parts of the cycle, and where is ATSU currently in that cycle?
Great, good question. We are currently in year 5, or the end of year 5, moving into year 6, and we actually were a little different because when they retired Peak, which we were in before, and enrolled us into the open pathway, we actually entered that in like year 2 because of how that happened. So we're actually in year 5 or 6, and what do we do as an institution? This is the interesting thing that I like about this pathway is that everything that we do as an institution, with our strategic planning, with our annual evaluations of every program, with our financial every year looking at our budget, these are things that we look at on an annual basis, that we have to report to the Higher Learning Commission how we do the processes. So we're doing it already. It's not like the old Peak process where you would just business as usual until about year 8, and then you put together a committee and work really hard for 2 years so you could have your your visit. This is something, because of the assurance process, that you do all through the 10 years, so you're ready for that final process. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so it's really, you already mentioned kind of the quality initiative. To me, it's kind of the beginnings of a continuous improvement type cycle. So maybe now tell us a little bit about what that quality initiative is and how that works.
Well, let me ask Lisa to do that, because this is one of her primary obligations in her new job, and that is to help manage the quality initiative. So Lisa, do you want to walk us through that a little bit?
Yes, thank you very much, Randy, for that preamble, and also a very masterful presentation of all that HLC is about and does. As you can see probably from the master chart of the open pathway, if we are still on that, I'm not sure if you're still showing that slide, Brian.
So the slide that I have up is kind of the flow chart of how does the quality initiative work.
Oh, okay. But the slide before actually indicates that if you are on the open pathway, you are then expected to have an improvement type of project, which is referred to as the quality initiative. And during year 5 to 6, there is the quality initiative proposal that's the window by which you need to have submitted your quality initiative. We chose, if we go on to the next slide, as an institution, rather than initiate our own quality initiative, we chose to work with the HLC. They have what they refer to the Academy of Assessment, which is basically supposed to help institution with assessment of student learning. And that is what we chose to do, was to participate in this academy, which will then become our quality initiative. But while we are in this quality initiative, we're still expected to initiate our own project. So it's not like you just go in and we just go through workshops, a series of workshops. All they really help us to do is to put together and guide us and make sure that we stay on task with our quality initiative. That's the advantage of going through this particular pathway. So which is what we actually chose. So in our first year, which was last year, we applied to join, to participate in the academy, and then we proposed a project, and our project was the transferable skills. So we were accepted into the academy, and so we are now part and parcel of the Assessment Academy. So we attend these academy roundtables, and we did attend our first one in June of last year in St. Charles, Illinois. Since then, we've had to participate in what they refer to as the collaboration network. This collaboration network consists of other institutions that have chosen to go through this particular route of the Assessment Academy for their quality initiative. And so we have very seasoned mentors and experienced advisors who help us along the process to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. And we post progress on a biannually basis. And so that's what we do in the interim years until year 9. And then in year 9, we're supposed to upload our reports. We write up a report to let HLC know what all has happened since we proposed this quality initiative. So, and then we, of course, attend the academy to present our results, and then we complete our participation, and our quality initiative is done. So our actual quality initiative, if you would go move on to the next slide, has since changed from transferable skills to what we're now calling core professional attributes. So we have, in our small quality initiative team, determined that we probably want to change the name of transferable skills to core professional attributes, because transferable skills seem to cause some confusion among different individuals. Some feel like transferable skills, you transfer from one job to another. Others feel like these are transferred from the university setting onto the job. So there was some confusion as to what the actual term transferable meant. So we decided to go with a new term, and the new term is called professional attributes. We also determined that the 8 that were initially identified were just way too many to try and evaluate, because ultimately we have to assess and evaluate and provide evidence that our students are actually have these transferable skills upon graduation. So we eliminated the last 4: ethical and legal understanding, leadership, well-being, self-assessment, and reflective practice, because we felt that these would be very challenging in assessment. However, some elements of these 4 were integrated into the new core professional attributes. So critical thinking was kept as is, cultural competence, interprofessional collaboration, rather than calling them positive interpersonal communication, we called it interpersonal skills, which encompasses interpersonal communication and other aspects of interactions, of interpersonal interactions. And then ethical and legal understanding, we thought social responsibility made more sense, as social responsibility is embedded and is the core of our mission. So we thought social responsibility would make more sense. While this is where we are in terms of the quality initiative as a project, we still need to receive feedback and input from the community at large. So this is the stage where we are actually at in terms of the quality initiative. So we are now soliciting feedback and input from all the various constituents in terms of what do they feel about this new direction, and do they endorse these core professional attributes as our new ATSU graduate skills that we expect upon graduation?
That's great. It seems to me like that fits really well with kind of the spirit of the HLC and a continuous improvement process. I mean, the transferable skills have been around for a little while. We've kind of reviewed them and said, hey, now we can even make them better by focusing them down a little bit further into these core professional attributes. So I think that makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
So
thank you for that.
Lisa, maybe you can tell us a little bit then, kind of what are the overall objectives for the quality initiative?
Okay, the overall objectives are outlined very quickly. We have a broad definition of what we call the core professional attributes, but the actual objectives for the QI project, first and foremost, we wanted to define and refine the core professional attributes, which we are in the process of doing right now. So we are defining and we are refining these core professional attributes. Once this first stage is completed, we will move on to mapping these core professional attributes to the curriculum and the core curriculum. This is just to demonstrate that our students are actually accomplishing or achieving these core professional attributes. And then a very important and critical piece of it is to develop performance measures to assess these core professional attributes in our students. And finally, we would like to track the extent to which graduating students have acquired these core professional attributes.
Excellent. Thank you both for kind of outlining in general what the HLC does, and then addressing specifically how it's going to affect ATSU, what our specific project is. I think that's fantastic. If you guys don't mind sticking around, then I think before we wrap up, we can get to some final questions. So please, if anyone out there has questions, please post them in the live stream, and we'll come back to Drs. Danielsen and Ncube with questions and hear a little bit more. Have them give us some information about anyone who's interested in being a peer reviewer for the HLC, how to go about doing that. But I think at this point, I'd like to break to our break to educate. And backed by popular demand to help us with this segment, we have Joe Vincent from Human Resources. So, Joe,
thanks,
glad to have you
Brian.
back.
So in our break to educate today, we're going to talk about a resource that's actually provided to all of our staff at ATSU University, staff and faculty alike, have the opportunity to use a resource to help further their skills, learn new skills, and develop some abilities that maybe need to be learned on the job, or as we confront new technology or new things that we need to learn how to do. We have a resource available to us that helps us do that. It's called lynda.com, and for many of you, I'm sure that's an unfamiliar term, and maybe you've heard infrequently. And so today I have with me a couple of people that are going to help us figure out what exactly lynda.com is and how it can be useful to you in your everyday work environment. I got Melanie Davis right here next to me, and she is going to help us provide a little bit of testimonial first-person knowledge about how Lynda can incorporate into your work environment. I've also got Kyle. Kyle is actually from lynda.com. And he's going to start us off, I think. Have we got him still? Do we have Kyle there still?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, hey. Oh, there you are. I was looking for your face. I got all freaked out for a second. But there he is. All right, Kyle is here from lynda.com. And Kyle, would you start out by just telling us what is it and why do we want to use it? Is that a good place to start?
Sure. Sure. Like, say to someone who wasn't completely familiar with lynda.com, I would say that lynda.com is a global online learning resource, which supports not just software training and technical skills, but also personal and professional development with content that is unparalleled on the market when it comes to quality, depth, and breadth.
Wow, that was amazing. Did you make that up just now? That was incredible.
Right off the top of my head.
Yeah, I see why they had you come on today with us, because that was unbelievable. I have a picture here of Lynda. She looks pretty stoked. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's on the coffee mug. She's excited to be here. Kyle, do you know who this gal is? And how come she doesn't get a capital L in her name? Do you have an explanation for that?
Yeah, this is a fairly popular question. Yes, I do know that gal. I have met her before. She's here a lot. She's wonderful. The reason why the L in Lynda is not capitalized, and this is kind of interesting, is that the name of our company, which was, by the way, started in 1995 when she bought the domain, is actually the website. So if you think about it like Amazon.com, they don't call themselves Amazon.com, they call themselves Amazon, and then they capitalize it. Same with, say, eBay. They call themselves eBay, not ebay.com. Well, the name of our company is actually lynda.com. And as you know, domains don't have capital letters. So to kind of keep with the aesthetic of the name of the company being lowercase, we generally keep the L lowercase with regard to Lynda Pro, Lynda Enterprise. Anytime that we're doing things like that, we'll capitalize the E in Enterprise, the C in Campus. But Lynda's name, with regard to the name of the company, is lowercase. That's why.
Kyle, I do have another question. I just thought of it just now. Did
Yes,
you
sir.
go to the gym this morning knowing that you were going to put your chest onto the video? Because I didn't, and now I feel
Yes, I did.
inferior. You did? You got a pump there at the, that's cool. Hey, okay, but seriously though, look, how many, this is a tool that I assume fits lots of different work environments. How many universities, if you know the answer to this, are actually using lynda.com?
That's a great question. Actually, I believe the last time I checked, I believe it's 93 of the largest 100 universities in the country, 40% of all universities, period, and all 8 Ivy League schools, actually, all use lynda.com.
Okay, so that's compelling. It's something we should pay attention to, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So tell us about the course offerings. You mentioned there just a little bit, not just software development. You mentioned some other things. Like for instance, how many different courses are available on lynda.com?
Currently, there's over 3,000 courses available, and courses are added weekly. We usually produce about 25 courses a week. So we're constantly adding. Our production is getting bigger and bigger, and more broad and more deep.
25 a week.
Yeah.
You look well rested. I gotta say, you're pulling that off.
Well, we have a production crew here. We actually have the largest production studio in California, north of Hollywood.
This is all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
Kyle, you're gonna have to hang around more often. Hey, do you use Lynda yourself?
Absolutely.
What was the last course you took?
The last course I took actually was how to craft an elevator pitch.
I don't even know what that is.
Exactly. It was actually really interesting. It was actually one of the shorter courses, but what it did was it teaches you kind of, if you're ever talking to someone in an airport or at a party or you're networking, it's how to summarize you and your career, which is something that we don't really think about. Usually when people ask you what you do, you kind of stutter, oh, I work for lynda.com. And you start getting all these questions. And this sort of teaches you how to create a flow by saying, hey, my background is actually largely in customer service. Now I work as a client service coordinator for lynda.com. We're a global online learning resource. And it just kind of allows you to kind of think a little bit about kind of what you do and how to be ready for that sort of thing, especially with regard to the way networking is just increasingly more important in this, global business landscape. It's pretty cool. It's a very cool course.
No kidding. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought you were going to try to sell an elevator or something. An elevator pitch. You could probably do that too.
So Joe, we've got a question coming in from online for Kyle. And it's really about lynda.com, and he's asking if the lynda.com courses can be downloaded for offline viewing. And I think he's thinking like when you're on a plane, could you download a lynda.com course so that you could continue to learn even when you're offline?
Yes, the answer is yes. You can on a mobile device. So if you have an iPad or an iPhone or an Android device, there is the capability to download for offline viewing. Yeah, it's really, really convenient for people who have to travel a lot and they want to watch it on airplanes or whatever. It's really, really convenient.
That's awesome. And that provides us a good segue. And by the way, keep sending in questions. We're going to be on this for a few minutes still. But let's go and actually look at a sample course. I think we got a clip here of what one of those courses might look like. Let's do that now.
You ever found yourself halfway through a work day and then you say to yourself, have I done anything today? I mean, have I done anything important with my time today? It's very common for us to question that because we're not really good at managing time. It's unfortunate because, I think the single most precious asset we have in our careers, maybe in our lives, is time. Every minute that passes by, well, that's a minute you can't get back. We waste time every day in all kinds of ways. Sometimes we focus on the wrong work, or the right work at the wrong time. Or maybe we put too much time into personal issues or socializing. The list is long. The point is, we're so bad at managing our time, there's an entire industry that has grown up around us to help us use time more effectively. Think about it. The time management industry is massive. Every year, individuals, teams, and organizations spend millions of dollars trying to harness the use of time. There's gotta be a better way. Let's think about what it means for you to get clarity in the middle of the chaos that is your entire day. Now, the time management industry is well-intentioned, and they have a lot of good tools. But they also, ironically, take up a lot of time. I want you to get focused, be more thoughtful and intentional about how you approach your day, and I'd like to talk about a simple way to make that happen. A very simple approach that just might transform your day. So let's start thinking about what it means to allocate your time more effectively at work every day. I want to offer...
There you go. So, time management. Now it's got me thinking between that and my elevator pitch. I got to get out of here and get working. So let's move this thing right along. I mentioned earlier, and Kyle, hang around because we may still need your expertise. But I also have Melanie Davis with me. And you guys, if you work on the Kirksville campus, actually, or the Mesa campus, you probably run into Melanie or crossed her in a hallway. And Melanie is one of those people that has found an incredible amount of value in the lynda.com courses, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, initially, I remember getting an email from ITS saying that we had this available to us and they'd like us to try it. And at the time, I needed to learn some more about a data analytics tool called SPSS. So I went on there to see if they had it, and sure enough, they did. And so I went through and found out some things that I needed to work on in that program. So that's how I got started with it.
Okay, and now, so like you're a legitimate junkie now. You're on there all the time.
Yes, anytime I have a question, I go to lynda.com and see if it's there.
Now, so that SPSS course was pretty helpful. You and I were talking before we started today that a lot of times there's just a little piece of information or two that you need right now, but that you're actually able to save those courses and go back to them later if you want to finish them up or you have more time.
Right.
So the real question is how many courses do you have started right now that you need to go back and finish?
A lot. I most of the Microsoft Office suite I've gone into to get little tips and tricks on. And when I have time, I start at the beginning and I go through, and then it saves your progress, so you know how far you got. But then what's nice is if you just need a little information about something you're working on right now, you can go directly to that and watch the video for it. And yeah, I use it a lot. There's a great course on iPad tips and tricks, and I go to that frequently when I get stuck.
Yeah,
So.
I need to check that one out. Did you find it hard to use? Did it was there like a learning curve for figuring out how to use the
Not
site?
at all. It was very intuitive. I mean, you go into the site. It's easy to get to because you can access it through the portal. And then once you get there, there's a search feature, so you can search for whatever you're looking for and just push play on the course.
Right, and so we actually already have login rights, and if you go in through the portal, you don't need to know another login
No.
or password or anything. You're automatically in. And I was just looking at the courses offer here, and it really does run the entire spectrum from 3D animation to time management to all sorts of business tools and design tools. And I don't know that there's going to be anything in here that you might want to know about that isn't on there already. For someone who is wondering if this really will add to their productivity or their value as an employee, what would you say to someone considering that?
I would say absolutely it's something they need to check into because there's just so much information in there for professional purposes. There's also personal development that you can do in there, and it's very, very helpful. So.
Cool. Well, Melanie, thanks so much for coming and sitting here with me today. I appreciate it. I actually have 2 of these mugs, which I'm going to give one of those to you.
Great.
Is that all right?
Yes, thank you.
And then the other one is like cracked and it's kind of dirty anyway, so I'll just take that one with me. Because we'd hate to give a broken one away. Actually, I'm going to leave it right up here. In addition to Melanie, it turns out there's a lot of people in the ATSU community who find lynda.com incredibly helpful. We're just going to play a few of those feedback clips that we got from people because there was some great responses to that email, and let's take a look at that real quick. Very cool. So lots of you are finding lynda.com helpful. For those of you who weren't aware that it's a resource there, definitely check into it. Part of professional development and making ourselves more valuable and able to contribute more to the university and to our individual positions is going to rely a lot on the job professional development, and lynda.com is one of those resources that definitely makes that possible. Those were a lot of good comments. Carolyn McCarty for no particular reason other than Jean Varnell closed her eyes and pointed at your name. We selected you from amongst the comments that were submitted, and you're going to win one of these mugs as well. It won't be this one because, like I said, this one's broken. And so I'm going to take it home with me and make it a planter. But we're going to send you one of those. Thanks for submitting that. Guys, we're going to actually start tracking the usage on lynda.com, something we've been able to do for a long time, but the most frequent users every month on lynda.com are going to start to receive a piece of this kind of swag because we know you love it and because we want to encourage you to be on that site and learning new skills. So once every 6 months, if you're a winner, you'll be eligible to win again. We'll check those statistics every month, and we will figure out who's using it the most, and we'll send you a cool piece of something with lynda.com on it as a way to congratulate you for your effort. Remember, those courses are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's not just for technology courses. It literally does cover the entire spectrum. And with that, Brian, we will give it back to you.
All right, are we going to go to a few comments first? Okay,
Cool.
we'll be back in just a sec. Excellent. Thanks, Joe Vincent from HR for kind of moderating that little section and encouraging people to really use lynda.com as a resource for professional development. It's really important. Another thought there is, as a supervisor, think about the tools that you need to develop your staff, and lynda.com can be a resource from that perspective too. Thanks to Melanie for being our super user with lynda.com, and thanks to you, Kyle Frazier from lynda.com for answering some questions for us. So with that, we're going to go to a different type of professional development. We're going to go to another segment on our Microsoft tips from our very own Beth Thompson, and she's going to kind of follow up on one of the tips that she did earlier, and let's go to that.
After last session, I had some questions on how the Excel table had some arrows next to the data. This is part of the conditional formatting feature. Conditional formatting allows you to use colors, fonts, borders, and/or icons to emphasize data. There are many options within conditional formatting. I'm actually going to start at the bottom with icon sets. The icon set option will assign a visual icon next to the numbers based on their ranking from highest to lowest. For example, the green up arrow will indicate the greatest numbers, the yellow horizontal arrow the middle numbers, and the red down arrow the lowest numbers. Another option is color scales. This will use color gradients to indicate highest to lowest. So with the green, white, red color scale, the darker the green, the greater the number, and the darker the red, the lower the number. Data bars put a miniature bar-like graph icon in the cell. The larger the number, the longer the bar graph icon. The top-bottom rules allows you to highlight the top or bottom values or percentages, or any values above or below average. In this example, I have highlighted all values that are above average. The Highlight Cells rules gives you the most options for customizing exactly what you are trying to emphasize. For example, we have a spreadsheet with all the student grades. We use the less than function to highlight all of the grades that are below 75%. Using the Manage rules, you can edit, delete, and prioritize the rules you have assigned. Theoretically, you can use more than one set of rules in a range. However, please remember that conditional formatting should be used to enhance specific data, not overwhelm the reader. Please note, just because you can does not mean you should. If your spreadsheets look like a crayon box exploded over it, you have gone way too far. Also, be considerate of those with visual impairments, as adding too many images, icons, or colors may cause the spreadsheet to be unreadable. I have only touched on the basics here. Please email me if you have any questions, want further instructions, or if you have suggestions for further episodes.
All right, well, welcome back. I want to thank all of our guests, and I want to go back to a quick question for Randy and Lisa. For any faculty or I guess staff people, I'm assuming more faculty, but maybe staff, who are interested in becoming peer reviewers for the HLC, Randy or Lisa, do you have any feedback on how they can go about doing that?
Sure. Let me say a couple of words, then we can cut to Lisa. But first of all, the commission relies upon the work of what they call peer reviewers for accreditation activities. In other words, these are folks, usually faculty and certainly some staff, who actually go out and do the site visits. And the commission provides training to peer reviewers. In fact, Lisa was the director of that program for a number of years. And we have very few people at ATSU who actually who have been trained as peer reviewers. I've been lucky enough to be one of them, but we need more, and it's good for the institution. It's good training. And Lisa, would you say a few words about that before we end?
Absolutely. I myself was a peer reviewer before I joined HLC, and it was one of the most rewarding professional development experiences that I ever had. Just having the opportunity to visit with other institutions to find out what they're doing right, also validates a lot of the times what you are doing at your own institution. But you also get to learn new ways of doing things, and it keeps you renewed and it keeps you moving forward. One of the struggles of the 21st century is just staying competitive, having a competitive advantage over others. And you definitely want to know what's going on with other institutions. And the information you bring back to ATSU is invaluable. You come back with a wealth of knowledge that we wouldn't otherwise access. So I encourage anybody and everyone who is interested in becoming a peer reviewer. They are always looking for all levels of participation, from faculty to library individuals to almost anybody at an institution can apply to become a peer reviewer, because when you go to review an institution, it's all aspects of the institution that they look into. So IT people, CFOs, CEOs at the very top, and everyone else, they're interested very much in having people participate as peer reviewers.
Excellent. That's great to know. So thank you, Dr. Ncube and Dr. Danielsen from Arizona, for giving us all the information on HLC. Thanks to Melanie, thanks to Joe, thanks to Kyle. Really appreciate everyone being here. And kind of the thread that runs through today's session is professional development. So we'll do another professional development with the Lunch and Learn in a couple of weeks. Until then, take care. Thanks much.